Hey, what's good, everybody? Good afternoon. We'll take a quick look here at what happened today. As you guys can obviously see, huge sell-off in the afternoon. So we'll kind of go over that, what led up to that, and really what we were targeting. On this 1 hour, obviously, we've just been pushing higher, 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 higher. So if I kind of zoom out and just show you everything, you can see from here, right, just all upwards expansion. Areas of consolidation, but so far, just continuing to trend higher and higher. We have engineered all of these lows now as we traded into this 4-hour fair value gap the first time. And now as we approach more premiums, so this level here, move this. This level here is a 1-hour fair value gap. We hit that perfectly to the tick today. But prior to that, you see how we're just continuing to clear buy side, right? Create buy side, run it, engineer short-term buy side, run that, short-term buy side, clearing that. So we just continue to clear buy side before finally dumping. And this dump, right, lo and behold, what did we return into? Well, let's look at that original consolidation here. So now if we look at that external range, this low is really the last significant low prior to this whole extended move up. So after clearing all of this buy side in here, we now reverse and run out this sell side pretty aggressively and pretty swiftly. As we work down now in the lower time frame, so just on the 15-minute, the long we took this morning was based off this 15-minute chart. We had these equal lows here in London. You'll see that we create a short-term buy side pool, so that became a target later on in the afternoon. So we engineer this buy side. We now trade back down into equal lows. Notice how we create and engineer more equal lows first. We run that equal low just barely, clearing that short-term low, and then accelerate into that buy side. Clear this short-term high, or first create this short-term high anyways. Use that midnight open, run that short-term high, and then break structure at that point, off to the races lower. Once again, right, this is that 1 hour fair value gap, so we hit that perfectly. That was really the discount that we traded up into today. From the 15, we'll go straight to the 1. This is that 15-minute equal lows that we were speaking of. So on the 1 minute, you can see those equal lows here. That's what we were aiming for here this morning. So you see that we create equal lows first again, and then we come down and clear that right at 9:30. This was a clear-cut YouTube model, right? High probability entry. We're engineering and clearing a lot of liquidity. The time is a factor right at 9:30. Right, we're running a short-term low. We're breaking structure here at the high. Up close candle becomes the breaker. We have our order block as well. So if our breaker, notice how that breaker's mean threshold is perfectly this fair value gap's consequent encroachment. Once again, that's not random. Down close candles, we have our OB that's getting tapped as well. So all in all, textbook entry, 9:30, quick Judas swing to return into that inefficiency after clearing that sell side. And from there, all upwards delivery. So we were just watching this. We weren't really interested until 10 o'clock. And now as we get to 10 o'clock, you see we're creating this consolidation. We kind of wanted to see if this 1 minute fair value gap here, let's go ahead and label that. So 1 minute fair value gap paired with old daily high, that was our level of interest. And at 10 o'clock, we wick right up into that level. So at first, we wick right into the high, perfect delivery. We then reject. Next candle leaves a small fair value gap open. This fair value gap is aligned perfectly with this level, which is our new day opening gap. So now we have our new day opening gap, 1 minute fair value gap. We're waiting to see, does price want to continue to accelerate up and through this 1 minute fair value gap? And if it did, we can trust that that area will now be used as an inversion support. So as we come into it the second time, halt, and then in one swift motion, we trade right up and through that fair value gap as well as this candle's high. At that point, we understand that this fair value gap will offer us support in the short term. And that's why we go ahead and go long here. So as we first tap into it, first entry, second entry comes as we trade into the actual fair value gap left behind, right here on the 1 minute, paired with previous day high, right? So we add that second entry there. And then these levels are a 15-minute volume imbalance and 15-minute fair value gap. So we understood that this was going to act as kind of an area of hesitation, area of short-term resistance. So we had to sit through this choppiness. Time distortion here. All of this is waiting for that 15-minute candlestick to close at 10:30 here. So all this back and forth is just wasting time, right? We're consolidating between the 15-minute, the volume imbalances, and the previous day high, paired with this 1 minute where we entered. Eventually, we get that release we're looking for, creating a short-term high. And now when we engineer the short-term high, that gives us a target to aim for. So we end up partialing out here. We engineer that short-term high, retrace back into that 15-minute, into the volume imbalance one more time, and now we attack that buy side. So we end up partialing out here at this short-term buy side pool before ultimately retracing and getting stopped out here in profit. Right, we didn't adjust our limit. So when we partialed out, didn't adjust our limit. So as we tag our limit, we actually had to close one more position. That's kind of what you're seeing here. Right, so no really extra trades, just that one entry. As we tap into the inversion, dig into the 1 minute, and then we get out at 5 handles at that buy side. That was really all we had for the day. Right, you'll see price kind of continues to consolidate now, just around that midnight level. We've hit really a buy side objective. So after hitting that buy side objective, we continue to consolidate, bounce at that midnight, clearing the short-term low, accelerating and clearing this high before reaching up into that 1 hour fair value gap here that we mentioned. So we're hitting that to the tick beautifully. After we hit that 1 hour, this becomes high of that morning, really of the day. So now we break away from that, and you'll see now all premiums hold us. So that bearish fair value gap here, this holds us, right? We come into it a few times, break away, leaving now a breakaway gap here, breaking structure lower. Notice there's no inefficiencies here. The most recent discount gets used. We continue to trade lower. Right here, we were following this one live. So now as we hold the discounts, break structure at this low. Right, we've gotten through this low. We would expect price to now continue lower. Notice that bearish fair value gap gets left with it. That fair value gap holds us, sends us into our new day opening gap. Well, now we have a fair value gap aligned near that previous day high. Paint outside the lines a little bit, but we come back up into the previous day high. I mean, look at that precision there, holding that beautifully, like laser precision. Breaking structure. What's this? High, low, higher, high, broken. Breaker block. Right, so we now have our breaker here. Pair that with the 1 minute fair value gap, and that's why you see this here hold. So real clean delivery. Then breaking underneath new day opening gap, tapping the new day opening gap perfectly, and then from there, off to the races. Right? Huge displacement. At this point, obviously bearish, so we can just trust all the premiums that hold. And now we're targeting, right, relative equal lows here become an objective. So now all the sell side targets created on the way up, those is what become our targets. And notice, right, so this low, as we break through it, how are we breaking through it? With a fair value gap. Closing underneath, showing displacement. We're already very bearish here, heavy. We trust an area like this to hold. Right, notice how the candle bodies don't return back above that level at all. So we wick into the fair value gap as well as this volume imbalance, but we never actually return up into this fair value gap here. Right, holding that most recent premium, breaking structure, off to the races. Giving you a quick volume imbalance entry. So as we tap this candle's close, that's an opportunity. But yeah, aggressive sell-off once again. Right, targeting lows. So we had lows here. No, relative equal lows here, which was actually previous day low, right? So as we break through that previous day low, we use that as resistance. Notice how once again, breaking through a key area, previous day low, with a premium in the form of the volume imbalance. We now trust that holds. Perfect delivery, repricing up into that, wicking into the fair value gap. Now breaking structure again, right? Keep looking to the left. We have more lows being targeted. So you're seeing how all these levels continued to be just targeted today. So a good day for sell side objectives. Right, targets were met. We can get this level here pulled up. Notice how this swing low is just above the previous new week opening gap. That's what this white shaded area is. So now we get underneath sell side again, underneath new week opening gap. At this point, we're in power hour. So power hour gives us a slight retracement. Notice what we're returning into, just the up close candle here. So we return into this. Notice we create a high, a low, a higher high that then gets broken. This becomes our breaker. Notice how it's aligned with the new week opening gap level. So once we close below it here, notice how the candle bodies respect that. We come back into it one more time, still holding the new week opening gap. So you see how these PD arrays once again overlapping. even within this, right, gives you an opportunity to get short before the breaker forms in the form of this bearish fair value gap. And then once we actually clear this bullish fair value gap, we have an inversion setup. So plenty of opportunities in here, right? You can use the inversion here as we tap into that. You can simply use the new week opening gap as we trade underneath it, right? Trading back up into that, we can use that. Notice how as we leave the new week opening gap here, so I'm going to move the inversion still, but also a 1 minute fair value gap bearishly, perfectly aligned with new week opening gap. So you can see all the opportunities it gives us. Quickly, last 10 minutes of the day gives you one more opportunity. So we had this here as that final sell side objective. And let me zoom all the way out. Go to a 15-minute chart. This is that lowest low we were speaking of here. So that was the final sell side objective. This low here. Let's go back to that 1 minute chart now. So you'll see on this 1 minute, we come into this new week opening gap. We break structure. Well, what are we doing? High to a low to a higher high that gets broken. We're creating a breaker once again. With that breaker, what else are we forming? Well, as we leave the breaker, we leave behind volume imbalance. More importantly, a small fair value gap there as we're breaking the low. So now we wick into that fair value gap. Bodies don't even get near it. Breaking structure. Notice what else we're using. This bullish fair value gap gets closed underneath here. So this candle, the wick is going into the 1 minute bearish fair value gap, but the bodies are being held by the inversion. And we see that here. Also look at that volume imbalance and this fair value gap. So you can see how deep we can get here, right? It gets very intricate. We keep it simple though. Easy breaker setup paired with the fair value gap. That holds and beelines right for that sell side. We hit that sell side and then once again, we fizzle out just like last week or yesterday, excuse me, after clearing that liquidity. Power hour is over and we fizzle out to where we are now. So overall, pretty aggressive move, right? We didn't really see this huge sell-off coming. Once it started going, we were able to follow it. But to be honest, we kind of wanted to see if price wouldn't dig deeper into the 1 hour. There was a buy side pull that we were looking at. So we fall short of that and instead go the complete opposite direction here. Going forward, let's go to an hourly chart. Going forward, we're obviously going to have a huge inefficiency in here now. So we're going to need to see how price wants to react. I would want to see if we get above this new week opening gap here that offered us resistance, I would look for this inefficiency. So there's this huge 15-minute, but more importantly, the untouched part of it. So we have a swing high here paired with an inefficiency. If we get above this new week opening gap, I look for that, and then I'd look for a continued delivery into at least equilibrium of this range, high to low. So just to show you what I mean there. This high to this low, right? Come back into equilibrium, which is basically a previous day level. If we want to continue this bearish delivery, however, on a 1 hour chart, I would really expect this 4 hour fair value gap to hold, which means we're looking at this 1 hour. So we'll see what this 1 hour offers us overnight. This will be an instance where we have to just come back in the morning and see what price does in the overnight session. But our areas of reference are this 4 hour fair value gap. Obviously this 1 hour, I'm going to move it so it's easier. But then this fair value gap here as well, which is the 1 hour. So yeah, we'll see what we get going into tomorrow. We'll be back at 9:25 Eastern, just before equities open. So until then, have a good night, everybody, and we will talk in the morning. Take care.